North Korea is one of the most closed-off countries in the world, where the majority of the population lives in poverty. And all power is concentrated in the hands of the Kim dynasty. Alongside the Workers' Party, the main state institution in North Korea is the army, which the majority of the country's economy serves. North Korea's propaganda machine has created a completely illusory world in which North Koreans conquer space, win World Cup championships in football, and are the most powerful nation in the world. If you think that in North Korea everyone gets around on foot, or at best rides bicycles or horse-drawn carts, that's not the case. North Korea's automotive industry is quite developed. Kim Jong-un's motorcades are especially impressive for their ostentatious luxury, consisting mainly of a large number of security personnel and expensive limousines from leading global car brands. And this is what the Korean peninsula looks like from space. The northern part is shrouded in darkness, while the southern part is dotted with patches of light from its nighttime cities. A similar division of the Korean peninsula occurred on July 27, 1953, when a ceasefire agreement was signed between the UN forces, represented by the American military commander Mark Clark, and the North Korean delegation, bringing an end to the brutal 3-year war between North and South Korea. Neither side in this conflict, neither the DPRK, led by Kim Il-sung and supported by the Communists of China and the USSR, nor South Korea, backed by the multinational UN military contingent led by the United States, was able to achieve any significant advantage or territorial gains. Therefore, as a result of negotiations, it was decided to return to the previous status quo, that is, to divide the Korean peninsula into two separate state entities: the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in the north and the Republic of Korea in the south. The border between the two states, which have still not signed the peace treaty, was drawn along the 38th parallel. In its economic activities, the DPRK relied on assistance from its ideological allies, the USSR and China. Thanks to the assistance of the Soviet Union, heavy engineering was developed, with its products primarily intended to meet the needs of the large army. And, as is well known, any major construction project requires a large amount of specialized equipment and vehicles. And it all began with the gas and ZIS trucks imported from the Soviet Union, which were used in construction, agriculture and the army. Back in 1950, the first automobile factory was built in North Korea, in the city of Pyongyang. However, due to the war and economic difficulties, production at the factory only began in 1958. The first vehicle assembled at this plant was the Sangri 58 flatbed truck, which was a copy of the Soviet Gaz and Gaz 51. 3 years later, the all-wheel drive version Sangri 61 was released, an analog of the Gaz 63. These trucks are still being produced in North Korea. Over the many years of production, the vehicles have undergone certain improvements and have acquired their own modified cab design. As for the technical basis of the truck, it differs little from Soviet designs that are 80 years old. Over time, due to the shortage of gasoline in the country, most of these trucks were equipped with gas generator units that run on charcoal. In Pyongyang or other large cities, such vehicles are now practically never seen, but in small settlements in the provinces you can encounter them quite often. You can spot them from afar, belching thick clouds of smoke above them, which can give the impression that a steam locomotive is approaching you. In the 1990s, when North Korea was experiencing a severe fuel crisis, such trucks were used everywhere, especially in the military and agriculture. The factory in Pyongyang produced not only trucks, but also copies of the Soviet Pobeda cars under the name Achimkoy, meaning morning flower. On the streets of North Korean cities, these cars can be seen alongside original Volgas imported from the USSR. Another factory closely associated with the production of copies of Soviet cars is located in the city of Pyeongchang. In 1968, they began manufacturing an analog of the Gaz 69 passenger vehicle here, called the Gyeongsan 68NA. Throughout all the years of production, various modifications of this vehicle were released. For example, a cargo version was built based on it. And in 1985, the Gyeongsan 85 model with a new canvas top body appeared, which vaguely resembled the Soviet UAZ. In the 1970s, the factory in Pyeongchang began producing Baekdusan passenger sedans. The car featured straight, angular design lines and an exterior resemblance to the Gas-24 Volga, although its technical foundation was borrowed from the 21S Volga or even from the Pobeda. Trucks called Tapeksan were also produced in Pyeongchang. They look like rough copies of the ZL-130, however, there is no information about the purchase of Soviet licenses. In North Korea, they copied not only the Soviet automotive industry but also that of leading Western countries. In the 1980s, the plant in Pyeongchang would copy the Mercedes-Benz 190E. A similar car, which was named Gyeongsang 88, was intended to serve as an official vehicle for mid-level party and military officials. As for its resemblance to the Mercedes, it was only on the outside. There was no trace left of the luxury features typical of all Mercedes vehicles. There was no climate control or power steering. In fact, even the side windows couldn't be rolled down. The Gyeongsang Mercedes is recognized as an unsuccessful copy and will not go into mass production. In the mid-1990s, North Korea experienced a severe economic crisis and crop failures caused by unfavorable weather conditions. All this led to a terrible famine that lasted from 1995 to 1999 and, according to various estimates, claimed between 250,000 and 3.5 million lives. One of the main reasons for this tragedy was the collapse of the socialist bloc and the USSR, from which the lion's share of agricultural products had been supplied. Another reason was the large number of sanctions imposed on the country for its attempts to develop nuclear warheads. The famine will mainly affect the towns and villages of the province. In contrast, the large cities, protected by the ration card system, will manage to survive these difficult years, despite the tough social conditions of the population. Almost all available resources were directed toward the development of the army, the missile program, and the creation of nuclear weapons. Test launches of ballistic missiles toward the Sea of Japan will become the main tool of blackmail in the hands of the Kim dynasty dictators to secure their own interests against Western countries. The automotive industry will also continue to develop. In 1998, one of the most famous and largest automobile factories in North Korea was built in the city of Nampo. It was named Pyeonghwa, which translates as peace. The company's logo, as the best illustration of its name, features two doves of peace facing each other. This very enterprise was meant to become a bridge between the two states of one people, leading them towards cooperation rather than confrontation. The factory, as well as the company of the same name, were established together with the South Korean Unification Church, which was founded back in 1954 by North Korean-born Sun Myung-moon. Moon's church will invest $54 million in the joint project with North Korea and will receive a 70% ownership stake through the company Pyeonghwa Motors. Moon's church also had ties with the Vietnamese company Pyeonghwa Motors, which was engaged in the production of licensed Fiats. That is why the first car produced at the new plant will be the Sienna sedan, which was part of the Fiat 78 World Car project, an attempt by Fiat to manufacture cars all over the world. The first Fiat cars were assembled from ready-made kits imported from Vietnam. Later, the company would come up with its own names for different types of cars. Mid-range and economy cars would be called Wiparam, which translates from Korean as whistle. Luxury class sedans would receive the name Zumna, meaning horse. Small commercial vehicles and SUVs would be called Pyokogi or Kuku. They would even produce minibuses under the name Samchonri. But in reality, the Wiparam is a Fiat Siena, a small, four-seater sedan measuring 4 meters and 10 centimeters in length, which was available with gasoline engines of either 1.2 or 1.6 liters. Production of the Wiparam 1 was completed in 2005. In total, only 500 cars were built during this time. In 2003, another Fiat model was introduced, a small van, the Fiat Doblo, which was named Pyeokgi 1. The Doblo was less popular than the Siena, and after a small limited production run in 2003 and 2004, the van was discontinued. Overall, Fiat's products were expensive to manufacture and brought in little profit. Therefore, the decision was made to end the partnership with Fiat and shift focus to the Chinese automotive market. Thanks to its connections in Dandong, the Unification Church was able to reach an agreement with the Chinese automaker Shuguang, which would later be renamed Huanghai, for the licensed production of this company's SUVs and pickups. The advantage of these vehicles was that it was possible to establish exports to Vietnam, where they were sold by the already familiar company Pyeonghwa Motors. In March 2004, the first of these vehicles rolled off the assembly line in Nampo. It was a 5-meter-long Shugwang SUV with a Forks 2-wheel configuration. In North Korea, it was named Pyeonggi 2, while in Vietnam it was exported under the name Pyeonghwa Premium. Production of the SUV would continue until 2006. In April 2004, the model lineup was expanded with the Pyeonggi 3, a double-cab pickup truck built on the SUV's platform. This 5-seater pickup was exported to Vietnam with a hardtop roof. That same year, an all-wheel drive SUV was also assembled, which is why it received the corresponding name Pyeonggi 4-wheel drive. Production of this model ended in 2007. In an effort to attract the attention of the country's top military and political leadership, Pyeonghwa Motors decided to start producing its own executive class vehicles. Knowing that those in high offices prefer Mercedes cars, the decision in Nampo was not to buy Mercedes vehicles in Germany and resell them in Pyongyang, but to start producing the luxurious South Korean sedan Ssangyong Chairman, which was itself a copy of the Mercedes E-Class 124. The finished model, which was named Zumna meaning horse in translation, was demonstrated to the top leadership of the Workers' Party of Korea. This car did not generate any particular interest among the public. The original Mercedes cars were still better. Nevertheless, a small number of these cars would be assembled in 2005-2006. Subsequently, the Nampo company would focus on producing small sedans. The first model would be the already familiar Whistle, but now it receives the name Huiparam 2. This time, it will not be the Fiat Brilliance BS4 from the Chinese company Brilliance located in Shenyang. The sedan will have a length of 4.6 meters. In 2010, this model would be complemented by the famous Huiparam 3 version, which later became known as the Huiparam 1405. Originally, this is the Brilliance BS2 model, a 5-seater sedan designed by the Italian company Italdesign Giugiaro. These cars can quite often be seen working as taxis in Pyongyang. In 2012, the Moon Church, which owns 70% of the joint venture with North Korea, decided to conduct an audit of this project. Nominally, the factory's production capacity was about 20,000 cars per year, but in reality the number of vehicles produced was much more modest. The best year was 2011, when they managed to assemble 1,820 cars, which was less than 10% of the factory's nominal capacity. From 2002 to 2011, the company produced only 6,368 cars. The profit was almost zero. In the best years, and there were only two of them, 2009 and 2010, the company earned $700,000 and $630,000 respectively. For financial reasons, as well as due to political pressure from the more conservative government of South Korea, the Moon Church decided to get rid of its stake in Pyeonghwa Motors. The initial price set by the South Koreans for their stake in the company was $200 million. But after failing to find a buyer, the Moon Church decided to transfer its stake to the North Korean government in exchange for potential contracts in the hotel business. Having lost its main investor from South Korea, Pyeonghwa Motors only worsened its financial situation. Car production nearly came to a halt, and control over the factory gradually passed into the hands of Chinese investors. From then on, it was Chinese cars that would form the foundation of North Korea's automotive industry. In 2018, at the 16th Pyongyang Spring International Trade Fair, the company surprised everyone with as many as 16 new Pyeonghwa models. A more detailed examination of these cars confirmed that all of them were assembled in China, and in North Korea they were simply rebranded and fitted with a Pyeonghwa badge. In North Korea's class-based society, a car is not just a means of transportation, a commodity, or a product that you can buy at a dealership with money. A car has become part of a motivational reward with which the country's top leadership honors individuals for their service to the party. That is why ordinary North Koreans mostly get around by public transport, ride bicycles or scooters, or simply walk. In the provinces, the role of public transport is often filled by regular trucks with wooden benches installed in the back. As for the DPRK leadership, most lower and mid-level party officials mainly get around in imported cars of various model years. For example, you can still find Volvo 144 sedans here, which were imported from Sweden back in 1973 in a batch of 1,000 units. The cars were purchased on credit, which the DPRK still has not paid off. Prestigious cars from expensive automotive brands, despite bans and sanctions, still make their way into North Korea. For example, the top leader of the DPRK, dictator Kim Jong-un, prefers luxury Mercedes vehicles. He owns several Mercedes S-Class limousines in the W220, and W221 body styles. Kim's car fleet consists of about 800 vehicles in total. Among them is a Mercedes Maybach S600 Pullman Guard, an armored limousine 6.5 meters long, which often attracts attention due to the large number of bodyguards running alongside the car when Kim is inside. Another star of the car fleet is the luxurious Rolls-Royce Phantom, which Kim used to arrive at a meeting with former US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in Pyongyang. Today, North Korea's automotive industry produces about 40,000 cars per year. But this figure includes not only passenger cars, but also other types of vehicles, including trucks, buses, trolley buses, and trams.